Hey everyone, imagine that. Central bank policy in this country is actually helping immigrants become more wealthy than old stock Canadians. Now, I guarantee there's still plenty of baby boomers that are making out like bandits as a result of this historical, unprecedented stimulus post the Great Recession of 2007 2008. Western advanced developed economies such as Canada, the US, the UK, and others have been busy and steadily using their stimulus program, basically government, the central bank, printing money or issuing bonds or securities as a means to prop up and pump up the economy. And you're seeing, well, the stock market is a reflection of that as well. This constant printing of money, well, I mean, anyone that understands how macroeconomics works and what is a direct result of these stimulus programs is, of course, the only people that benefit from them are those who get immediate access to the stimulative effects of printing money or falsely stimulating the economy or pumping up housing prices, which is a direct result. And even the central banker in Canada has admitted that it's central bank policy that has contributed to the massively overinflated housing market in this country. Like I say, a lot of boomers today they bought houses back 20, 30 years ago, or maybe 40 years ago, and now today that same house is now magically turned into a proverbial gold mine, and it's worth, maybe back in the day it was 30, 40, 50,000. Today it might be worth up to what, $1 million? Like, that's not based on anything that's grounded in reality or proper economics. No, that's based on the fact that, like I say, the central bankers, they keep, well, every time they reduce the interest rate, that means people that borrow against their homes, now that cost has gotten lower, so they can go out and buy a bigger home and not see their payments go up. So they keep getting this added stimulus effect that every time they trade in, they're trading up. But if you're someone that's new, like a younger person such as a millennial or a Gen Zer, although I'm sure they're not quite in the age range yet to buy homes, but if you're a younger person such as a millennial, or even some of the Gen Xers that are lower end on that scale that don't have homes already, yeah, this constant stimulus effect, well, it's actually making houses and the affordability of owning a house that much further out of your reach or out of your grasp. But if you, like say, if you're some of those people that get in early in onto the scheme, right, on this Ponzi scheme, because that's basically what you're talking about. The housing market in Canada today is basically like a big, gigantic Ponzi scheme. So those who got in earlier, like the boomers, they're making out like bandits today. Or if you're one of those immigrants that are coming to this country and directly benefit from all this stimulus effect, right? So if you're an immigrant coming to this country the last 10 years, you've benefited tremendously of this constant speculative valuation and increased valuations of the homes you purchased in. So you might have bought a home, let's say 10 years ago, and if it's gone up by, 300,000 or 400,000 in those 10 years, well, now you can either pocket that few $100,000, or you can go out and step out into a bigger home, right? So the stimulus effect is really predominantly helping, like I say, the baby boomers or those who are coming to this country that get to start out, get their fresh start in a stimulative environment. If you're a millennial that's lived here your whole life and is saddled with debt, especially financial student loan debt, and have had to work for what little bit that you have, well, you're seeing all these price increases in this overinflated housing market. It's making things much more expensive and basically preventing you from even entering into the housing market, which is not even just a matter of owning a home. As most people have recognized, it's also preventing a lot of young people, such as the millennials, from even starting families, because most people don't want to start a family until they have at least gotten themselves into a home or a residence where they feel secure in doing so. This has profound ramifications, not just for demographics, but by showing the glaring divide between who's the chosen winners and losers in the economy, and it's all a direct consequence of central bank policy and big government initiatives. Headline of the CBC News Business: immigrant families more likely to own home than add to pension plan, Stats Can says. Immigrant families' wealth grows faster than Canadians born here, new data shows. It's being reported by Pete Evans, April 16th, 2019. Immigrant families who have been in Canada for more than 2 decades tend to be worth more than families who were born in the country, new data from Statistics Canada released Tuesday shows. The data agency released an analysis of numbers from 1999 to the 2016 census, comparing immigrant families with those born in Canada and looking at various aspects of their financial lives. The findings show that both groups have, on the whole, seen a big increase in their wealth over the past 2 decades. And that's another thing. Yeah, there's lots of stimulus effect post the dot-com crash of, 2001 too. So, yeah, you can take this all the way back to 99 for sure. The average wealth of established immigrant families, those whose major income earner was aged 45 to 64 and landed in Canada at least 20 years earlier, grew from $625,000 in 1999 to $1.06 million in 2016, an increase of $435,000 or more than 69%. Comparable families where the major income earner was born in Canada are worth less on average, but saw a bigger gain from $519,000 to $979,000. That's an increase of $460,000 or more than 88%. One reason for the discrepancy may be that immigrant families are much more likely to put their money into real estate. Compared with Canadian-born families, immigrant families generally hold a greater share of their wealth in housing, but a smaller share in registered pension plan assets, the data agency said. Well, yeah, because they wouldn't have been the ones that were forced or thrust into these pension schemes or Ponzi schemes. Because, yeah, excuse me, I repeat myself, because in reality, that's what's going to happen at some point in time. And like I say, the kicking of the can down the road, well, that's all going to come to head at some point in time. People are going to realize that these unfunded liabilities, yet they're only, the only reason why they're even sustainable at this point in time is because, like I say, they could plunder the economic prosperity of future successive generations that are unborn at this point in time. But at some point in time, like I say, this is going to break. This scheme is going to be proven for what it is. And that house of cards is going to begin to fall. On average, 69% of the wealth increase for immigrant families can be traced to gains in the amount of equity they have in their homes. That compares to 39% for native-born Canadians. So 69%. So think about 70% of that increase in wealth for immigrant families is a direct result and can be traced to gains in the amount of equity they have in their homes. So what's equity? Because, like I say, if next year your house, let's say you bought a house at $500,000, if next year it's worth speculatively $580,000, you've magically gained $80,000 worth of equity, right? And of course, if you're an immigrant that's come to this country, especially, I mean, 20 years, you could stretch it back that far. But I would even say over the last, 10 to 12 years, when all the stimulation has been happening because of central bank policies and big government initiatives, yes, there are a lot of people, like say, mostly boomers and immigrants, and I guess, foreign investors such as the Chinese, that have greatly benefited from the stimulus aspect of overinflating the housing market in this country. But once again, nobody wants to consider or concern themselves with the flip side of that, which is all the people that want to buy homes, all the young people, all the millennials, and like I say, the Gen Zers that are going to be up and coming soon and have to get into the point where they're going to be looking to buy homes or rent or have some roof over their head. This is the problem with central planning is you're constantly picking winners or losers in the economy, and a lot of the times the winners, I mean, the baby boomers are already considered the wealthiest cohort or generation in all of modern history, right? Do they really need all this extra benefit or speculative wealth? Or these immigrants even? Like, what about, like I said, what about the working poor? What about the millennial age folks? What about even people from Gen X? They're still trying to get a leg up in this economy, and most of us are actually the ones that are carrying the most weight and the burden as far as propping up the economy. I mean the ones that are actually doing the real work, right? Not just sitting around pushing pencils. I mean the ones that are actually doing the real work and sustaining the bulk of the economic activity in this country that actually does produce something, that actually does produce tangible wealth. Not speculative wealth, not Ponzi schemes, but real wealth. Like I say, those of us, like I say, Gen X and under, we're being constantly screwed over and placed at the proverbial back of the bus for immigrants and the boomers. Those are the people, or LGBTQ, whatever. Like, the central planners have priorities as far as their political positioning or policies, and it's, like I say, it's immigrants, it's the boomers, and it's a few other small subsection of society as far as special interest groups. But for the rest of us, yeah, sorry, they're more than willing, like I say, they're willing to sacrifice us, every single one of us, to sustain the economy that they've built up to benefit certain people. I don't know what it's going to take to get Canadians to stop falling for this nonsense and start pushing back against it and start putting politicians in power, at the very least, that's willing to try to unwind some of this mess. Although that's the thing. It's not going to be an easy thing or job to accomplish because, like I said, there's going to be people, a lot of people are going to be harmed economically. If anything shifts as far as the economy and demographics goes, but hey, you know, that's the problem. Certain people in any particular demographic or aspect of our culture or of our country, they shouldn't constantly always have everything afforded in front of them just because some political actors or political parties have the power and the supposed authority to pick them as winners in the economy. Under any kind of free market environment, there would be no pretense of being able to pick winners or losers in the economy. Everything would be based on competence and what people provide as far as their value, their lot in life. Like I say, folks, this system was set up with a particular goal in mind, and it was predominantly about catering to the boomers. And the boomers are showing time and time again they're willing to align with just about anyone that's willing to go along and keep this Ponzi scheme, this stimulus effect of propping up their speculative wealth for as long as they deem it necessary. Well, I guess until they're in their 70s or 80s and they're all basically at the last or final years of life. I guess maybe at that point in time we'll finally get it under the thumb of the baby boomer cohort. But until then, it seems like for most of us Canadians, especially the younger generations, yeah, there's a whole lot more pain that you're going to have to feel and you're going to have to endure, that you're going to have to suffer. I guess until you finally see the light, see the error and the ways of supporting big government or these forced wealth and income redistributive schemes. I guess some of you do it because you think, well, hey, maybe we'll get ours someday. Well, yeah, but if you do, even if you ever do get yours someday, just like the boomers, it's going to come at the expense of your children or your grandchildren. I say we got to stop trying to pass the buck and all the hardships onto successive or younger generations to prop us up in the here and now. I say the buck stops at Gen X. I say we get back to respecting the golden rule and not offloading debt obligations or unfunded liabilities or entitlements onto future generations so that we can live like kings and queens in the here and now. I'll post a link to this article in the description of the video below, but like I say, folks, this is just another example of where central banks and central planning is a detriment to a large and substantial portion of the population in any country. But those who benefit as a consequence of this stuff, they're not going to tell you so. And trust me, those in the media, the political class, and your thought leaders, those are the ones that are still benefit tremendously. So to them, they don't want to see this scheme unwind or wind down. And why would they? For them, their house has turned into a proverbial pot of gold that just keeps growing year after year after year, all at the expense of the younger people in this country. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.